Yay, everyone. So welcome to the present continuous tense, part 1. We are now starting with the continuous tenses. As you can remember, in the first 24 videos that I have uploaded before this one, we discussed the simple tenses. So we looked at the simple present tense, the simple past tense, and the simple future tense. So now we are starting with the continuous tenses. And of course, we will start with the present continuous tense. Okay? So with the present continuous tense, we are going to do 8 videos for this tense as well. Okay? It will be made up of 8 parts. And this is the first part of the 8. Right? So let us get started with the lesson. Okay? So in this lesson, we are going to discuss firstly, what is the present continuous tense, right? When do we use it? In what situations do we use it? Okay. And then after that, we will then look at how do we use it in terms of the structure. How do we structure our sentences in the present continuous tense? And then lastly, we are going to apply the rules of the present continuous tense, of course, with the structure by doing some exercises. Okay. Now in this part, we are looking specifically at the present continuous tense positive verb sentences, meaning the sentences that have real, actual verbs. Okay. So without any waste of time, let us get started with the lesson. Of course, my name is Chris, and I will be your teacher for this lesson. Let us get started. So, the first question that we need to answer before we move any further is, when do we use the present continuous tense? In what situations do we use the present continuous tense? Okay? So, we use it to talk about actions that are happening now as we speak. Right? So this is just basically the shortest way to explain the present continuous tense as to when do we use it. We use it to talk about actions that are happening now as we speak. Now, just to dissect this explanation a little bit further, right? Just to explain it further. What this means is we use the present continuous tense to talk about the actions that we are doing right now. As in, like, right now, as we are speaking, what action are we doing? Okay? For example, right now, what am I doing? I am recording, right, a lesson on the present continuous tense right now. So this is the present continuous tense. This is what I'm doing as I am speaking. Now, please do not confuse the present continuous tense with the simple present tense. Please do not confuse the two because they are completely different. Remember, with the simple present tense, we said we use the simple present tense to talk about the actions that we normally do in our lives as part of our routine, as part of our habits. Not necessarily the actions that we are doing now, but the actions that we do as part of our routine, as part of our habit, right? Repeatedly at certain times or moments, right? I want to explain the difference between the present continuous tense and the simple present tense clearly, okay, so that you understand the difference between the two tenses, because most people tend to confuse them, okay? They tend to confuse the two tenses. Now, if I say I wake up at 6 a.m. every day, right? This is the simple present tense. I am not waking up now, but I am just meaning that this is the action that I do on a regular basis as part of my routine, as part of my habit, as part of my life. But right now, I am not waking up. I am actually recording a video right now. I am recording a video on the present continuous tense. So this is the present continuous tense because that's what I am doing now. So these two tenses are different, okay? I wake up at 6 a.m. every day. This is what I do as part of my routine. I am recording a video on the present continuous tense. This is now the present continuous tense. Okay? I hope this clarifies, right, like the confusion. So please, in future, do not confuse these two tenses. All right? So now, let us go back to the present continuous tense. Like I said, I was just explaining the difference just so that you don't confuse them. But our focus in this specific lesson is the present continuous tense. The actions that we are doing right now as we are speaking. Like I said, right now, I am recording a video. That's what I am doing now. Okay? Perfect. So I hope this settles, right, like the meaning of the present continuous tense as to when do we use it. All right. Now, let's go to the how do we use it, meaning the structure. How should we structure our sentences in the present continuous tense? But of course, in this part, we are focusing specifically on the positive verb sentence in the present continuous tense. So, the present continuous tense verb sentences structure, meaning that we are going to have real actual verbs in our sentences in the present continuous tense. And first, we are looking at the positive verb sentence. Okay? We're looking at the positive verb sentence. So how is the structure? The structure is as follows. It says, first, we need the subject. Of course, the subject is the person or the thing that is doing the action in a sentence. Then we need the present verb-to-be. Remember, the verb-to-be in the present, we said we have am, is, and are. Okay? Depending on the subject. After that, you need a gerund. Now, a gerund, right, is just a verb that ends with ing. So it's real, actual verb in the infinitive form plus ing. For example, kick becomes kicking. I've just added ing. So that's a gerund, right? A gerund is a verb that ends with ing. Now we need the verb that ends with ing, the gerund, to indicate that this is a continuous tense. Any sentence that is a continuous tense must have a verb that ends with ing, must have a gerund. All right. So a gerund is a verb that ends with ing. Basically, verb plus ing. Like I said, kick, kicking. That's a gerund. Eat, eating. That's a gerund. Talking. That's a gerund because it ends with an ing. Sitting. That's a gerund. Reading. That's a gerund. Writing. That's a gerund. So a gerund is a verb that ends with ing. After the gerund, you need the object. The object is the person or the thing that is getting or receiving the action. And then after the object, you put other words. Now, the rule says use the verb to be in the present M for the subject I. Use the verb to be is for the subject he, she, and it. Use the verb to be are for the subjects you, they, and we. Okay? Of course. I think you can remember this when we did a simple present tense verb to be sentences, right? Where we use these verbs to be, right? Excellent. Now remember, we need the verbs to be here. Why? Because we are using a gerund, meaning a verb that ends with ing. But it's still a verb. It's just that it ends with ing. So that's why we say these sentences are verb sentences. Why? Because they have real, actual verbs. Okay? I hope you are still with me up to so far, okay? But just to recap, before we move on, the structure is the subject plus the verb to be, right? Now, the verb to be that you use depends on the subject that you have. If your subject is I, use the verb to be am. If your subject is he, she, or it, use the verb to be is. If your subject is you, they, or we, use the verb to be are. Okay? Then you use a gerund after the verb to be. Like I said, a gerund is just a verb that ends with ing. If your verb is talk, then it becomes talking. If your verb is eat, then your gerund is eating. Okay? Then after that, you put the object. And after the object, you put other words. Remember the sentence that I said at the beginning of this lesson, right? Where I said, I am, so I, subject, am, verb to be. So I'm using am because the subject is I. Recording, so the infinitive verb is record. But because we need a gerund, a verb that ends with ing, so I add the ing at the end of the verb. So it's record plus ing. It becomes recording. Plus the object. I am recording a video, right? Right now. So a video is the object. Right now, other words. All right, everyone. So I think everything is shaping up nicely with regards to the present continuous tense, verb sentence structure, positive verb sentence. So since we now know the rules associated with this structure, and of course, the structure that we need to follow when we are forming the positive verb sentence in the present continuous tense, we can try to apply these rules and the structure in the following exercise. Let's go there. The exercise says, change the following sentences into the present continuous tense positive sentences. So present continuous tense positive sentences. Let's start with the first sentence. So first sentence, Tom kicked the ball very well. Now remember, the instruction was we change these sentences to the present continuous tense. When you see the word continuous, already it means the verb has to have an ing. It means you have to use the gerund. That's what it means. And when it says present, right, already you know that you have to use the verbs to be am, is, or are, depending on the subject that you have. So the sentence here, Tom, we've got the subject. Tom, it's a he. That's the subject, he, right? Then we've got kick. So we need to make it a gerund. We put the ing at the end. But remember, it is the present. So we need the verb to be before the gerund. So then we have to put is here after the subject. So the correct sentence then is, Tom is kicking the ball very well. So that's the correct sentence. Second, the baby cried over nothing. The baby is the subject. The baby can be a he or a she. So the subject is a he or a she. And therefore, we need to put the verb to be is, right? Because the subject is a he or a she. So we put the subject is. So the verb to be is after the subject he or she. So the verb to be is. And then what do? We add the ing at the end of the verb to make the verb a gerund. So it's still a verb, but a verb that ends with ing. And the ing only shows that this sentence is continuous. It is not simple, but it is continuous. And so the correct sentence becomes, the baby is crying over nothing. Third, Emmy play football with his friend right now. Emmy is the subject and it's a she. So for the subject she, we need the verb to be is after the subject. What do we do to the verb? We add an ing at the end of the verb to make it a gerund so that we can indicate that our sentence is continuous. And therefore, the correct sentence becomes, Emmy is playing football with her friend right now. Fourth, I walk to work. Okay? Subject, I, and therefore we need the verb to be am, since the subject is an I, and we add an ing at the end of the verb to make the sentence continuous. So the correct sentence is, I am walking to work. Next up, we drink orange juice with them. Subject, we. For the subject we, the rule says we use the verb to be are, and then we add an ing at the end of the verb. And therefore, the sentence becomes, we are drinking orange juice with them. Right, let's keep it going. Next up, you sing with the choir. Subject you, we use the verb to be are after the subject you. And we add an ing at the end of the verb. the correct sentence becomes, you are singing with the choir. Next sentence. They run together to bond. Subject, they, and therefore we use the verb to be are after the subject they. And then we add, of course, an ing at the end of the verb. But in this case, of course, we add another n. Okay, that's the spelling of running. So we use the verb to be are, since the subject is they, and we use are. Why? Because the sentence is in the present. And then to show that it is continuous, that's why then we add an ing at the end. And therefore, the correct sentence becomes, they are running together to bond. Next, Ken and Tina dance very well. Subject, Ken and Tina. So here, right, you have a he and a she. So you've got two people. So in this case, right, I'm talking about other people. I did not include myself. Therefore, the collective subject is the same as they, because I'm not part of the subject. I'm talking about other people. So Ken and Tina, the subject is the same as they. And therefore, for the subject they, we use the verb to be are. And of course, we need to put an ing at the end of the verb dance. We remove the C, we add an ing. The sentence becomes, Ken and Tina are dancing very well. Next up, Sylvia and I eat rice and chicken at a restaurant. So you've got Sylvia, she, and I, which is myself here. I'm a he, okay? So I have included myself in the subject, and therefore the collective subject here is the same as we. Why? Because I'm part of the subject. So it's similar to saying we. And therefore, for we use the verb to be are, and then we add an ing at the end of the verb. So the correct sentence is, Sylvia and I are eating rice and chicken at a restaurant. All right, everyone. So that is all about the present continuous tense, part 1, in which we looked at the positive verb sentences, okay, in the present continuous tense. In this lesson, remember, we first learned when we use the present continuous tense. And we said we use the present continuous tense to talk about the actions we are doing now as we are speaking. After that, we looked at the structure of the present continuous tense verb sentence. We said, of course, we need the subject and then the verb to be, am, is, or are, depending on the subject that we have. For I, use am. For the subject he, she, it, use is. For the subjects you, they, and we, use are. And then after the verb to be, then you have to use a gerund, meaning a verb that ends with ing. Then after that, you put the object, and then after the object, you can then put other words. Lastly, we apply the rules that we learned with regards to this type of a sentence. And also we applied the structure by doing the exercises that we just finished now. All right, excellent. So I hope that you learned a lot in this lesson, and I believe that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please be on the lookout for the next video that I will be uploading after this one. In that video, I'm going to explain the negative verb to be, so the negative verb sentence in the present continuous tense. The negative verb sentences in the present continuous tense. All right. For now, it is a wrap from me. Thank you so much. Goodbye, and see you in part 2.